On your right is Riverside Point, built in the style of the go-downs or warehouses that once lined the river's banks. Now known more for its eateries and a microbrewery, it is built on the site of what was formerly Honglin Quay, probably named after Chiang Honglin, a 19th century philanthropist who also lent his name to Honglin Park. In colonial times, the area was notorious as a gathering spot for secret societies, opium smokers, and prostitutes. Most of the old buildings in the area were torn down and the waterfront go-downs refurbished. As colourful as it was in those days, we think you'd much prefer the present version. Clarke Quay on your left is now a thriving entertainment area, bustling with eateries, night spots, and entertainment. But it was a very different place from the 1800s until just a few decades ago. Hundreds of bumboats, or lighters, used to be moored here at any one time, disgorging their cargo, the lifeblood of Singapore's trade. The buildings along most of the quay were mostly go-downs, where the cargo would have been stored. The shop houses were 2 to 3 floors high. Typically, the ground floors would have been reserved for the shops and trading offices, with the upper floors serving as housing for working-class families and coolies. Living conditions were not luxurious, but living near your workplace had some advantages. Named after Singapore's second governor, Sir Andrew Clarke, Clarke Quay is considered a historically significant area, and plans were put in place to preserve its architectural character around the time of the Singapore River cleanup in the 1980s. It reopened in late 1993 as Clarke Quay Festival Village. At that time, it was Singapore's most ambitious conservation project, costing over 180 million Singapore dollars. It won the Best ASEAN Conservation Effort Award at the 8th ASEAN Tourism Association Awards. First built in 1840, the original Coleman Bridge was only the second bridge across the river. It was designed by and named after G.D. Coleman, the first superintendent of public works, who also designed the first government house at Fort Canning Hill, the Armenian Church, and the former Parliament House. This is not the original bridge, which was rebuilt in 1865 and again in 1886. The current structure, modeled after the 1886 bridge, was built between 1986 and 1991 to accommodate greater traffic flow. Singapore's first bridge, built in 1819, stood at the current site of Elgin Bridge. Elgin Bridge was built with the purpose of connecting the Indian community in the north and the Chinese community in the south, and was named after Lord Elgin, Viceroy in India, in 1862. vital part of Singapore from the earliest colonial days, Clarke Quay was, for over a century, the backbone of trade. This was where thousands of bumboats delivered their precious cargo, where enterprising traders and businessmen congregated, and where fortunes were made. Just opposite the spot where Sir Stamford Raffles, founder of modern Singapore, first landed, this area has remained vital throughout Singapore's history. Most of the businesses were confined to the south bank of the river, with the north bank reserved for government purposes. There is a good reason for that. At its widest point, the south bank swells to resemble the belly of a car, an auspicious creature to the Chinese. With leading banks vying for space and aerial dominance in this financial district, you'll find two of the tallest buildings in Singapore in the vicinity, UOB Plaza 1 and 1 Raffles Place, both 280 meters tall. 1 Raffles Place, originally OUB Center, was, at the time of its completion in 1986, the world's tallest building outside North America. In the 1980s, with the river cleanup well underway, it was decided to preserve the historic charms of both quays go-downs and shophouses. Today, it is a popular spot for food, recreation and pubbing, especially for those who work in the area, now primarily white-collar professionals. Cabinet Bridge, coming up now, is the oldest bridge in Singapore still in its original form. Built in 1869, it was originally planned to be named the Edinburgh Bridge to commemorate the Duke of Edinburgh's visit, but instead was named after Governor Sir William Kavanagh. The grand building just beyond Cabinet Bridge is the Fullerton Building, now a 5-star hotel. It was built on the site of the former Fort Fullerton. The fort had been heavily criticized for years. Merchants felt strongly about a possible military target being located so close to their businesses. So, the fort was eventually removed and replaced by the post office in 1874. The merchants we're sure breathed a sigh of relief. The existing structure, built in 1928, served as the home of various government offices and as the general post office till almost the end of the century. In 1996, refurbishment works were commenced, with the current Fullerton Hotel opening in December 2000. In its early years, the building was considered the mile zero of all the roads in Singapore, the point from which all mile markers were measured. It was, in effect, the very center of Singapore. The Anderson Bridge holds the distinction of being Singapore's first steel bridge. As with earlier bridges, the structural steel components were made in Britain and shipped here. During the Japanese occupation of World War II, the severed heads of criminals were displayed on the bridge as a warning to citizens. In 1987, there was a grisly reminder of this violent past. The skeleton of a man was found by a maintenance worker while he was crawling between steel girders. The bridge is still open to traffic, and once a year, serves as part of the route of the Singapore Grand Prix night race. Built in 1997, the Esplanade Bridge serves as part of the Singapore Grand Prix circuit. It offers great views of Marina Bay and is often crowded with pedestrians during festive events such as fireworks displays, a fact which led in part to the construction of the Jubilee Bridge. It was Singapore's first Prime Minister, the late Lee Kuan Yew, who first suggested the construction of the Jubilee Bridge. During the visit, he had observed that the walkway along the Esplanade Bridge was narrow and not very pedestrian-friendly. This new pedestrian bridge boasts a walkway 3 times as wide and was named to celebrate Singapore's 50th year of independence. Often referred to as the Merlion, Even locals sometimes forget that the famous statue is one of 7 approved by the Singapore Tourism Board. The second, the Merlion Cup, is a smaller version located just behind it. The fish body symbolizes our history as a fishing village, but where does the lion come from? For that, we have to go back to the 13th century, when the island, known as Temasek or Seatown, was part of the fading Srivijayan Empire. In 1299, Sang Nila Utama, a prince of the empire, landed on the island on a hunting trip with his men. He spotted a strange animal, a vast, magnificent creature. Curious, he asked his men what it was, and was told it was a lion. Believing it to be a sign of good fortune, he decided to build a new city here, and named it Singapura, which means Lion City. Today, experts doubt that lions were ever found here, and that Sang Nila Utama saw a tiger, or perhaps an Asian golden cat, a medium-sized wildcat.